as a member of the NYPD. He was shot in the line of duty. He's here to talk about the shooting, his injuries, his recovery, and where he's at today. The place to be online is our Facebook page. Do a search on Facebook for Law Enforcement Today radio show. You'll get access to unique news articles, editorials, and so much more. That's Law Enforcement Today radio show on Facebook. And if you're on the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app, be sure to look for me and follow me. My name's John, the letter J, Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y. You can also search for @LET Radio Show. That's John J. Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, @LET Radio Show on the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app. Calling us from South Florida, Palm Beach County area, we have Dean Simpson on the phone. Dean is retired NYPD. He is also an author of 2 books. Number 1, The Blue Pawn, a memoir of an NYPD foot soldier. And second is Godless versus Liberty, the radical left's quest to destroy America's Judeo-Christian foundation. Dean, thanks so much for being a guest on the show. Very much appreciated.
John Jay, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today.
Well, I'm glad you are, because we're going to talk about something that is tough to talk about. I know a little bit of Dean's story. I don't know the details, so a lot of what he's going to talk about is as much a surprise to me as it is to you listening. You were retired from NYPD. How long were you on the job?
I was on the job just a little over 7 years.
Okay, gotcha. And I did look at your story a little bit, and our stories are remarkably similar, but I don't want to be a spoiler. I want to go into, you're on the job, you come from a police family, you had all the ideology I did. I'm going to go in there, I'll make a difference. It's a calling. It's here to help people, save lives. I'm not saying that's negative. I'm saying that's how I felt. I came in there to change the world, and it changed me.
Well, for me, growing up in a police family, it is like a calling. You know, seeing my father in uniform, hearing his stories when I was young, it was something that, from an early age, I knew this is where I wanted to go. So once I became a police officer, when I was a rookie, I was very fortunate. My father, he was a decorated officer. He was retired at the time when I was on, but he still had a lot of influence on the department. So this, I believe I should know this, but I think there's 75 precincts in the NYPD. It might be 77, and plus all the details. But the crown jewel is Midtown Manhattan. So if you have a phone call, if you have a hook, that's where you want to be. And I wanted to work in Brooklyn for really one reason, because it was closer to me, and that's where my girlfriend was at the time.
Right.
So my father said, no, you're going to go experience the city. And it was one of the greatest gifts ever given to me. I mean, it really opened up my eyes. The first 6 months in your rookie time is basically, they're broken into divisions. I was in Division 3, which is all like Midtown Manhattan, put it simply. And in that 6 months, you were a sergeant, other rookies, and there was a lot of camaraderie. We had a very tight group, and it was probably at the time I spent on the job, it's a time I look back on the most that I had the most fun. We were young. We were all kids. I mean, I was 20 years old.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually, you know.
I came out of the academy, Dean. I thought I knew everything. I was a 21, 22-year-old kid. I really knew nothing. And I thought I knew what I signed up for. The truth is, it was far more violent than I could have imagined. And you're right, the early days were the best, and I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to clarify something. I say when I came in to change the world, it changed me, not for the better. Means there's physical and mental scars. I don't think I'm a bad person. I owe no apologies. I did everything the best I could, but I bear the brunt of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, after it was kind of odd because we do 6 months in. For that first 6 months, I mean, you're a police officer. Nobody knows you're a probationary officer because you're still in uniform. You know, you have your firearm. But once you finish your 6 months, then you go to your assigned command. And it was the last day of my rookie division together with the guys. And it was as if, like, God was preparing me for, like, the next 7 years. Because there was a fire on the east side of Manhattan, and there were several fatalities. And our unit was sent there to secure the building. And I'm trying to think when I was a rookie if I ever saw any dead bodies. I don't remember. I know when we were in the academy, we had to go and, observe an autopsy. But on that last day, I didn't see the bodies were already taken away by the time we got there. But what was left behind stays with me to this day. And one of the things was there were nails embedded in the wall by the roof door. And what happened was they couldn't get out the roof door. It was against code. However, they had it locked, and that's where several people had died. And then
when you say nails, it was
marks.
Fingernails. It wasn't nails.
I'm sorry. Yes, I should have been more clear about that. It was fingernails.
No, that's a horrible thing to see.
Yeah, I was just like, this is terrible. And not being done with it, my sergeant, I was good friends with my sergeants. They were great guys, great mentors. He taps me on the shoulder and goes, listen, I need you to go down to the medical examiner's office. We're having a family come in to identify one of the bodies. And I'm thinking to myself, if there was ever a time I wish they didn't have confidence in me, today would be the day. The last place you want to be is down there. It's a very depressing, morbid building to be going into. And that part, when I had to go in and the family identified the body, was something else. I mean, this was all the last day. And that was the stepping stone now when I go into my command, that now I start dealing with death all the time.
Right.
Because as a rookie in your main command, you get stuck with the DOAs that die alone. You got to secure the body until the ME comes. And like anytime there's a real bad detail, you don't want to get picked. Somebody floats up from the water, a floater, you're stuck there until they take it away. So like all of a sudden now death is around me all the time. I was like, wow. So that was really a wake up call that I wasn't prepared for. Well, I shouldn't say I wasn't prepared for. It just, it leaves you. And if there were days I would come home very depressed, I'd be like, man, like seeing so many people die alone and see how they died. And everybody has a story. You're like, where's this person's family? Where's their loved one? Like, you start asking questions, and that's what sends you down like a bad road.
I think a big part of it, Dean, is the degradation you see people go through. So many people, and at least in my experience on police work, live a horribly isolated life. They die alone, and they suffer tremendously before they do.
Absolutely, and that's what that's what I was witnessing. And here I am in my young 20s, and I mean, I am blessed, but back then, I mean, I didn't realize how blessed I was. I just was very fortunate with everything I had in my life. I mean, my father was my best friend. I'm working in Midtown Manhattan. I'm going to nightclubs. I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities and having fun and just living a life. If I was working in Brooklyn, I would have to worry about where I was going to take a personal or get a sandwich. So I would come home and I would tell my father, I said, I got to thank you. I mean, this has been phenomenal. But he goes, if you still want to be, assigned to Brooklyn, I can do that for you. And I was like, no. I'll stay where I'm at. So it was a great experience. And, then slowly things start to happen. Like, who's the first officer to get killed that I worked with?
Right.
And that first funeral. Who is in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then you start, it'll drive you mad if you try to go down the rabbit hole, but you just like, tragedy. Everything has to go perfectly right to have this thing to go wrong.
One of the things that you said that really struck me is I remember being early on in my career, and I was very distraught about something. And a senior officer who'd been on a long time at that point said to me, don't try to make sense out of things that make no sense at all, because you will drive yourself insane. This is a Law Enforcement Today show. We're talking with Dean Simpson, retired NYPD. When we return, we're going to talk about the incident where he was shot, how it impacted him, and, well, let's just say his journey afterwards. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Harmony with Food radio show. I am your host, Meg Marie O'Rourke. In addition to being a radio broadcaster, I am a nutritionist for longer than I'd like to admit on the radio. Join my guests and I as we discuss how to live in harmony with food, from gut health issues, food sensitivities, food intolerances, and the comorbidities of obesity. Being your own healthcare advocate is achievable, and so is living in harmony with food. For the latest nutrition information blogs, check out my website, harmonywithfood.com.
Miss an episode of Law Enforcement Today? You don't have to anymore, because now you can listen to it on Podopolo, the free new app that makes listening anytime, anywhere so easy. catch up on shows you've missed, and chat with John J. Wiley right there too. Download for free on the Apple or Google Play stores. That's Podopolo. And John J. Wiley wants to hear from you inside Podopolo.
Return our conversation with Dean Simpson, calling us from South Florida. Dean is retired NYPD. He's also author of 2 books. Number 1, The Blue Pond, a memoir of an NYPD foot soldier, and Godless versus Liberty, the radical left's quest to destroy America's Judeo-Christian foundation. Before I forget, Dean, let me say this. Thank you for your service. And earlier I alluded to the fact I knew a little bit about your story. I just didn't go into a lot of details, so a lot of this is a surprise to me as much as to the person listening. You were in Midtown Manhattan. You had a great assignment. It's the creme de la creme where people want to go in the NYPD. One of the things that I had to teach people a long time ago, I had to learn, and I learned the hard way, was it doesn't matter where you are, violence will find a way to get to you. And really bad stuff happens in the best neighborhoods because criminals drive, or in your case, take the subway or the bus or whatever.
Yeah, evil travels, no question about it. You never know. I mean, it could be in the most innocent of places. For me, there was a lot of irony in how everything just came to be on that day. It was a winter day in the 90s, and I had been on the detail that I was in for about 2 years. I stayed in the command, but I started in my squad. In my opinion, there were a couple of bad apples. And I knew if I stayed working with the cops I was working with that just by association, it was going to cause me problems. So the only detail that was available, there was a command-level highway patrol open. Matter of fact, the lieutenant that was in charge of it, I played in a basketball league with, so it was pretty easy for me to make that segue. But there was really no other details available because there was a jam up on the job. There was no promotions. There was, things were kind of frozen. So I came home and I told my father, I said, listen, I said, and he knew about some of the corruption things that I was seeing. And I said, I had to do something. So I said, I decided to take this detail. And my father looked at me and he was like, like probably the 3 most dangerous things on the job is like, warrants, domestic disputes, and driving a squad car by yourself. And in this highway detail, you were by yourself. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like, I'm a pretty good sized guy. I just, I was like, I can handle it. It's too stupid me, but I always had good tactics as well. So I said, with the car stops, I wasn't worried. I mean, I knew. Plus, I used my instincts. I have great instincts for the most part, and so I never had a problem with a car stop. But it was early one morning. I was starting the detail. I took the squad car down. Anybody who's familiar with Manhattan, there's the West Side Highway. And this was on 54th and 12th. It's at the back end of Clinton Park. The day before, I didn't work. I was doing something else, and I wasn't in the command. And there was a bulletin put out that there was a triple homicide in the projects that are adjacent to the park.
Right. And
the reason I bring that up is because if I knew that, I probably would have handled the following situation differently. And what happened was, as I get there that morning, there was a little bit of a drizzle. I see 2 guys. They just don't look right. I knew everybody in the neighborhood who walks their dogs, and I was like, these guys don't look right. Nobody's out because the weather wasn't too good. I backed the car up, and they kind of disappeared into the park, and I was like, I'm not having my back to these guys. I said, let me just go up there, see what's going on, and either get rid of them or whatever I have to do. So I walk up there. I don't see anything. And now the rain starts coming down pretty good, and I'm all set to go back to the squad car, and I don't know what I was going to do, but I think I probably wouldn't have stayed. I probably would have drove the car back up and went around the park again in the car. And before I could turn, I see somebody, my peripheral vision, come at me. And it was one of those things where you can appreciate this. You have that safety space, and whatever that is, in every situation, it could be different. Somebody gets into that space, you just kind of like, nah, I don't feel comfortable with this.
Well, really bad things happen when people get too close to you.
Well, exactly. And something I like to see some laws be changed about that. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I've seen some of these protests, some of the protesters get right into the cop's face. And I think there should be a buffer for everybody's safety. and they're allowed to get away with it, which is a shame. But in my case, it happened so fast that, I wasn't going to be able to get to my service revolver in time. The person physically, I kind of sizing things up. I was like, okay, I didn't think the person was going to attack me in a sense, but I kind of was like, all right, let me see your hands. He had a hoodie on with the hood up, one of those zipper type sweat jackets, and where the pockets were on the side. And the next thing I know, one of his hands are coming out, and I see something silver and shiny, and it's just like, I know what that is.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't at me yet, and then it's a choice. I mean, can I get cover? I can't get to my gun fast enough, which, mind you, the gun should have been out. I mean, I would assume I should have probably, on most car stops, I had my firearm down by my side. I say most because sometimes I didn't. It's just one of those things I feel. But sometimes I would have it out. But something like that, if I knew what happened the previous weekend, that weekend before that Tuesday, I'm sure my instincts would have been a little sharper. So being basically in no man's land, I decided I got to charge him. And so I charged him. I go right for the gun. I got both hands on the gun. To my surprise, the other person was pretty strong. We were in a pretty good tussle now over it. And I started really thinking to myself, I was like, you can't lose this fight. You lose the fight, there's a good chance you're going to lose your life. And so I'm just about to have the gun. I'm just about to get it from him. And the next thing I know, he knees me because I'm bent over and he got a position on me, and he knees me into my chest, and all I could feel was the air just coming out of me. And I just couldn't get it. I couldn't take a breath in, and went down to the ground. And I'm like, oh no. And now I can't breathe. And basically I'm at his mercy. So, but for the grace of God, he didn't put a bullet in the back of my head. I tried everything to roll over because I was like, if he's going to shoot me, I want to at least be able to, see the evil in this person's eyes before I go. And I couldn't even do that. So I was very helpless. It's something that gave me nightmares for a long time afterwards, because you just felt that feeling of helplessness. And there's a nightmare that I'm sure a lot of cops can relate to is, I haven't had it since I was a cop, but the one where you do have your service revolver out and you can't pull the trigger. You just not strong enough, or it's just not pulling.
It's not working.
You're not able to pull it. It's just not working.
Yeah. Or the bullet dribbles out of the end, or worse yet, it's like I need it and I have to use it, and I wind up hitting an innocent person.
That too. So all those things kind of go through, and in those nightmare scenarios, never one of them being that I was going to get the wind knocked out of me and lay in a puddle of water, and basically have my life being determined by this assailant.
Before we go to break, Dean, I want to say this. What ended my career was a fight for my service weapon while still in my hand, and fighting and all the rounds being fired off as a revolver. That's how long ago it was. And fortunately, he survived. I survived. I couldn't hear for a while. I thought I sprained my wrist. I wound up having multiple surgeries on my right hand, and steel plates put in, and was retired at the age of 33. That incident still affects me physically, not so much mentally like it used to, but it was a no-joke thing. When you know someone is going to try to kill you, it is a life-changing incident. We're talking with Dean Simpson. This is the Law Enforcement Today show. We return. We're talking more about the incident and how it impacted him. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Want to win great prizes in awesome contests? Who wouldn't want that? It's easy. Just sign up and subscribe for the Law Enforcement Today radio show email newsletter. We won't spam you. No more than 2 emails a week. I promise. All subscribers are automatically entered in all future contests. Sign up at letradioshow.com. Scroll down to the sign up area. That's letradioshow.com. Current conversation with Dean Simpson, retired NYPD, also author of the book, 2 books, The Blue Pawn, a memoir of an NYPD foot soldier, and Godless versus Liberty, the radical left's quest to destroy America's Judeo-Christian foundation. Before we end the break, Dean, we're talking about this incident. You're in a fight for your life. The guy winds up kneeing you, knocks the wind out of you, his arm with a gun, and something kind of important happened that you didn't talk about.
Yeah, the gun went off, and convenient me for omitting that into this, just blocking it out. But I hear a gunshot go off, but I don't think I'm hit. I mean, at this point, I'm filled with adrenaline. So the shot goes off first in the sequence of events. Then I get kneed, and then I go down to the ground. So it's not until at some point. That's right. I didn't call on the radio because now I can't talk. It's the security guard. The piers are across the street, and they have a security guard there. He hears the gunshot. He calls 911, and I can hear the sirens coming. And what happens is one of the guys show up at the scene. Is a friend of mine, Sergeant Glenn, and he starts checking me. And he goes, "Are you shot? Are you shot?" Now I'm starting to get my breath, and I said, "No, I don't think so." And the next thing I know, I have my gray gloves on, and I see there's blood coming out of it, and I'm like, "Oh!" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess that's where the round went." And but still, I don't feel anything. I mean, it's the adrenaline is just pumping so much, and I'm just trying to get my ear back. And the guy is gone. The guy, there were cops there really quick from that 911 call, and I think that's what scared the guy off. I couldn't hear too well, so I don't know exactly when I was able to start hearing the sirens because I was getting a ringing sound.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that the guy heard the sirens before I did. So thank God he took off, and now I'm in the back of a squad car on my way to Bellevue Hospital.
You've been shot in the hand.
Shot in the hand. And still don't know if I'm shot anywhere else. Because a second round
how many
did go
times
off.
did you have to pat yourself down after incidents? We did it all the time. Are you okay? You been hit? I don't know. Let me check.
Yeah, I don't know. At that point, you just kind of like, and the sergeant, he was great. I just was like, at that point, you start getting at the shock a bit. You're like, we live every day. You wake up. Pretty much, we like our anchors. We like our routine. We like doing certain things on certain days. And I liked my routine there. I actually loved my command. there was a lot of things I really loved about the job. And, and I had a good routine there. I knew a lot of the local people, like I said, would come out in the morning, walk their dogs. I was friends with all of them. And it was like one of these things where nobody was around. Like there always is somebody around. And here it is. I'm by myself in the park fighting for my life with this guy. So,
did you realize at the time that was life or death, or did that dawn on you afterwards?
No, I knew in the struggle. There was a point where I turned around and I said, I can't lose this. I can't,
dude. You're making me sweat just talking about it. I remember, and look, there were several incidents I was in, but the one I'm talking about was very similar. I remember thinking to myself, this guy's trying to kill me. I'm going to die, but it's not going to be tonight, and it won't be because of him. And I was prepared to do whatever it took at that point to survive.
And I think that's the part where, for some time afterwards, I was really mentally beating myself up. I mean, there was a lot of the physical injury wasn't that bad. I mean, the hand was a bit mangled. Had an operation, was supposed to get a second. Wind up, then you start fighting with the brass. I mean, there was, like you can have so many fronts. And here I am. I'm dealing with a physical injury. Then the mental injury starts coming in. Now my one doctor, orthopedic, he wanted to have a second procedure done. The department's declining it. I'm just scratching my head. I'm like, what do you mean declining it? If that's got to get done, so it just became, it just seemed like everywhere after that point, there was a battle, and there was just stress, and there was frustration, and the days just got darker. I mean, it was just one of these things where my dream was, I was always, I love learning. I love school. So my whole thing was, to go up the ranks. This was going to be my career.
Yep.
And in a flash of an eye, now I'm arguing with some police surgeon on what day I should have to be forced to go back to work. And I'm like, you see that my hand is wrapped up and my arm is in a sling, right? I'm looking at the guy. I'm like, what do you want me to go back and do exactly? And, well, you can answer phones with your other hand. And I'm like, yeah. I said, or I can let you know when I'm ready to go back. And, because I still got to get from point A to point B. And there was just a lack of compassion. There was a lack of, when I talk to other people that went through similar situations, somebody who comes to mind is somebody that I think you're familiar with, my friend Christine.
Yep.
And when I actually had read a story and saw interviews, and I've said to her, I said, it's exactly what I went through. I said, it was almost a diversion. I don't know if it was good or bad, but there were times I was so off at the brass that I was forgetting that I nearly got killed. So, and that was
you're
like
preaching to the choir. One of the things that happens, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, you get seriously hurt, you get very close to dying, you have potentially career-ending injuries, and at that point, you are a number to the city or the county or the state, whoever it is, and the bean counters get involved, and your life becomes a non-issue. It's about getting you off the books, getting you retired, or getting you back to light duty, or whatever it is, and it's as if whatever human compassion is for the individual is gone, because then you're just a number to them.
Well, I had a little bit of a meltdown. And this was part of the descent. Now I'm going to rehab, and I have to report to the police surgeon every once in, I think it started with once every 2 weeks. The first time I was there, he was looking to push me back, and I'm like, that's going to be a problem. And I went to my father, and I was like, listen, Dad, I said, I don't want to stay home. I don't think it's healthy, but I'm not ready to go back yet either. And then we were having an issue with the second procedure, and I had to have something typed up. It was a 2-sentence thing to have done. And I called into the police surgeon's office, and there was a girl there that I knew. And I said, listen, before I come, would you mind? And they had offered. They said, Dean, if you need anything, I said, I just need this one thing signed because I got to get that to my doctor. No problem. And I showed up, and the sergeant there, you got to picture this. There's 50 guys, and men and women in this room. And he comes out and goes, is this him? Is this Simpson? And I'm looking like, what the hell did I do? And then the guy just starts berating me. Now, I've been in the service, and I understand, I'm in basic training, and I do something stupid. I'm going to get yelled at, screamed at, I do push-ups. You understand that. But we're all professionals here. If I did something, just pull me inside, tell me what it did. If you want to reprimand me, fine. But don't strip me down in front of everybody. And he goes on, this isn't your personal secretary, and how dare you? And he goes on for a couple of minutes, and I'm just standing there in shock. By the time I calmed down, I went, but for the grace of God, the guy left for mealtime or something. He wasn't there. By the time it all sank in, I really think I had a nervous breakdown. I started going berserk. And I'm like, who does this guy think he is? And I just went nuts. And I wound up coming home, and, I said to my father, I said, this isn't right. And he was away at the time. So we were actually talking on the phone about it. And he goes, stay by your phone. And I hate to say this because I know there's so many cops that have issues and they don't have that phone call. They don't have somebody to reach out to. And this is where I say I know I was fortunate in many ways. And this was one of them. 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from the sergeant apologizing to me. And I'm like, I said, who is this?
That doesn't happen very often. Trust me. In our world, that doesn't happen. We're going to take a short break. We're talking with Dean Simpson, retired NYPD. He was shot, had injuries to his hand, and began the process of, for lack of better words, a downhill spiral. Let's put it that way. When we return, we're going to talk about the incident that changed his life, his books, and more. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. If you haven't done so already, please download our app. It's 100% free. We got versions for your Android and iPhone devices, 100% free. You can download them today at our website, which is letradioshow.com. That's letradioshow.com. Be sure to get yours today. Return our conversation with Dean Simpson, retired NYPD. He's also author of 2 books, The Blue Pawn, a memoir of NYPD foot soldier, and Godless versus Liberty, the radical left's quest to destroy America's Judeo-Christian foundation. Before we went to break, Dean, long story short, 7 years on the job, he was shot in the hand in a battle, a life and death battle with someone who's a very vicious killer. And you began having the impacts, the emotional impacts, not just the physical. By the way, your injuries, how severe were they?
The physical injuries weren't severe at all. They weren't life-threatening, no.
But they were life-changing. Here's the thing. People think life-threatening doesn't mean life-changing. There's a lot of things that have profound impacts on your quality of life that may not threaten it.
Well, yeah, the being out of my routine. What happens is now for the next couple of years, once I'm off the job and I go through that process, which is, self, now I'm kind of left to, okay, you don't have an anchor. You don't have your life preserver, and you're on your own to try to figure things out. And I mean, I start drinking a lot. I not really realizing how much I'm spiraling downward. And then 9/11 happens. And I was actually, it breaks my heart to say it, but I was up until I guess about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning the night before. The Giants were playing the Broncos on Monday Night Football, and I was drinking all night. And my thing was to sleep all day the next day. And when I did wake up, I walked up to the store to get the paper and a coffee, and I see what's going on the guy's television, on the news in the deli. I'm like, what? I thought it was, I couldn't believe it. So across the street from where I lived is the church, my St. Patrick's church that I was very close with. And I go in there and talk to my priest. And the church is filled, and it's, as you can imagine, it's a crazy time in New York. And now for the next couple of weeks after that, I'm preoccupied. I'm going down to the pile. I'm down there, and I'm actually not drinking as much. It was kind of weird. It was just, now I got to be down there. And, but at a certain point that stopped. There was so many volunteers down there, cops, firemen. In my opinion, there was a point where we started to get in the way of the big machines. And the last night I was there was actually an altercation. And that's when I realized, I was like, between the hard hats and us guys. And I said, I don't think there's much more I can do without being in the way. So after that, I was down there for 3 weeks. Now we're into, I guess, October. The holidays are coming. And there was a particular night. There was one night in particular, my lifelong friend, Father Joe, comes and pays me a visit. I'm doing this bouncing job in a neighborhood bar, and just kill some time and have some drinks with my buddy who owned the place. And, he says, hey, listen, do I need to pray for you? And I was like, hey, I at that point, I didn't know what to pray for what? I knew I was in trouble, but, I don't know what it is I would be praying for. And he said, listen, why don't you come by the rectory? It was something I had done a lot previously, but probably hadn't done in a couple of years. And I promised him I would, knowing I had no intention. And this was December 23rd. I don't remember what day of the week it was. I think it was a Sunday night. And, that was the night by the time I got home, I was like, I don't want to live. And, I decided, I remember there was somebody close to me that took their life and left a mess. And I said, well, I don't want to do that for anybody. And so I made a decision. There was a place when I was on the job somebody had told me about that was really beautiful. It was like heaven on earth. And it was when they lost their daughter, and they were just very spiritual people. And they were telling me about this place, and another promise. I said, one day I'll go visit. And I never did. And I was like, you know what? That's something worth living for. So I said, all right. So I said, let me go up there. So I go up to upstate New York, and I take a train up there to Penn Station, and here it is Christmas Eve, and I figured, okay, they told me about this mountain. I go hike the mountain. I figured, what better place? It's secluded, nobody around. I really don't think too many people would have missed me in that sense. And this way, it's over. No more pain, no more self-pity and everything else. And but something happened in between there. On the train ride to the place, I had a lady sitting across from me, and just one of these people. She just wanted to talk, and I was ready to rip my ears off. She was so annoying. At one point, she said, what do you like best about the city? And I said, well, probably the thing I like most about it is, there's 8 million people, and I can go days without speaking with anybody. But the thing I like most is just being left alone. And as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I was like, wow. You really turned into a jerk. So she was very kind. It didn't discourage her. And I apologized. We got into a conversation, and she started telling me about her life. She was a grandmother, lost a husband. She would go into the city to catch a play or lunch and people watch, and she just loved the energy. And, you know, he's like, you know, what are you doing today, Christmas Eve? I said, I'm going to go hiking, you know. And she's just like, hiking? You know. And then she came out right before the train pulled into the Albany station. She had a note for me, and, you know, it's something that touched me. And, you know, just, you know, how life is about hope and not giving up. And, you know, and the kindness in her. Here's a person that probably an hour and a half before, I just would have done anything to be away from her. And now she's probably the closest person I have in my life at that moment.
This almost sounds like a Frank Capra style movie. This woman hands you a note, and it begins a process of changing your life. Yeah.
She was saying, she was like, life's a gift. And I think that's something we forget. I think it's something that we, when you're in the darkness, it's very difficult to turn around and be appreciative. And one thing I had to start doing, well, I had a moment on the mountain. You know, I made some promises, and, you know, I knew the alcohol was an issue. So that was going to have to be, you know, the first battle. And then, you know, the next thing was, you got to do something with your life, because if you concentrate on yourself, you're going to be depressed, and you're going to be so consumed that you're not going to look at the rest of the world. And that's just not a good way to live. So I said, you got to start basically getting out and helping people. And once I started doing that, and that road to recovery, and I am where I am now, it's a different person. I mean,
thank God for that. Thank God for that. And is that when you started writing your first book?
No, I'm 54 now. I was always a writer. I always wrote in school and different things, articles, but I never wrote a book. So when I was blessed about 11 years ago, I met my wife. She knew about a book I had an outline for. So we were away on vacation. It was the night that the 5 Dallas police officers were shot and killed.
Yeah.
There was 13 injured, and it really had an impact on me. We were away on vacation. It was July 7th, 2014, I believe. And she looked at me and she's like, if not now, when? Like, tell your story.
If not now, when? And if not you, who?
Right.
And that's when the book, The Blue Pawn, a memoir of an NYPD foot soldier, was born. And by the way, the word pawn, a lot of people take that as a negative. It isn't.
Well, I mean, in the book, you know, basically means a foot soldier.
Right. That's what I was getting at.
Was.
Yeah. We think of a pawn as the chess piece or being used by someone else. But we can get lost in that conversation. We're almost out of time. I want to make sure people know where they can get information about your first book, The Blue Pawn, a memoir of an NYPD foot soldier, and second book, Godless versus Liberty, the Radical Left's Quest to Destroy America's Judeo-Christian Foundation.
They can find them both on Amazon. The first one should be at Barnes & Noble also. And there was a book in the middle. And it was my wife's book, Gardenia's Garden. And anybody who has kids out there, young daughters, I highly recommend it. It's about her story with her daughter and her migration from Colombia to America. And probably the proudest day in my life being an American citizen was being at her nationalization ceremony and her taking the oath of allegiance.
Phenomenal. And are you online? Proud. Is there a place where people can find you?
No, I kind of shy away from social media, but I know if I'm going to, at some point, I got to start pushing myself in that direction as well.
Well, you know what we're going to do, Dean? You and I will work on you taking that plunge in the social media world together. I want to thank you for being a guest on the show and sharing your stories. Very much appreciated.
Hey, John Jay, I really appreciate this time. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our guests so much for coming on the Law Enforcement Today radio show. The Law Enforcement Today radio show is a nationally syndicated radio show broadcast on numerous stations once a week and growing. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, please do me a big favor. Tell a friend. I'll be back in just a couple days with a brand new episode of the Law Enforcement Today radio show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.